Hey everybody, it's Inferno Fox here, and joining me today for a special collaboration, we've got FeralInferno from the YouTube channel of the same name. And with twice the Inferno, you're gonna get hit with a mega flare here. And
Total
just
mega flare.
absolutely. And if you like excellent content like mine, extending into coverage, such as anime and comics, plus excellent live gameplay playthroughs, I cannot recommend Feral Inferno's YouTube channel enough. He's also had kind of a similar beginning to video games as I, where both of us have been playing video games for years and years and years. I can't recommend Feral Inferno enough. So make sure you check out his channel, you subscribe and ring that bell for notifications. And Feral, again, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. I'm really excited to talk about our topic today.
And speaking of Mega Flare, today we're going to be using our collective video game knowledge to talk about Mega Man. And it's really something near and dear to us, specifically classic Mega Man, because we both grew up with the NES, like the 8-bit stylings of the Blue Bomber. And so we really have a strong affection for this particular variation of Mega Man himself. And there's been a lot of different ideations and versions of this, including some really wide swings and gameplay styles. I feel like to us, there's really nothing that beats that sort of core classic 8-bit gameplay. And so we're going to be talking about that today here. And also, as Feral and I talk about these games and we ask each other questions and converse about it, make sure to answer these yourself here in the comments section below, as Feral and I like to engage with our audience and sort of talk about what makes these great games tick. And while you're there, just make sure you give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe for more fun video game content. So, Mega Man themselves. On the original NES, I have to ask this, but a just precursor, there's of course 6 different entries released in the mainline series on the NES, again, from 87 to 93. You are seeing it live on the screen here. Look at that. All 6 entries, the US versions. Feral, I gotta ask you, which one is your favorite?
Oh, that out of the original 6?
Yes.
You
This is
know, that's a tough question, really. There's not a bad one in the bunch. They all have their merits. In terms of the favorite, it depends on what we're talking about, I guess, right? So, if we're talking about the music, then I got to go with Mega Man 3. The music is just so, there's not a bad track on there, and it's emotional, especially with, introducing, the brother, right?
yeah.
Mega Man's brother, Proto Man. So, I mean, the opening tune, right? The opening tune, and like there's even tricks, little Easter eggs, when you fight Proto Man, if you press the pause button, like right as you kind of fall down into his pit, you'll get an extra tune, right? So it plays a little bit of extra, his whistle, it goes a little bit longer, right? So it's just excellent music. When you're talking about gameplay, Mega Man 2 is kind of known for, having really great gameplay. When you look at different innovations, Mega Man 6, right? Mega Man
Oh
6, you
yeah.
get the rush adapters and you get the different variations of the stages. Like, hey, you go different paths. They have branching paths for the first time in a Mega Man game. And there were several stages like that. And you had to take, the secret path to get, I think, the little the beat letters there. So, that's have my little props here. So yeah, it's tough. They all have a place for me. I guess the easier thing for me to say is, maybe it's a cop out, but easier thing for me to say is, out of the 6, which one is my least favorite? And that would actually be 5. That would actually be 5, because I think 5 has the least amount of innovations, other than Beat. Beat was one of the innovations in there. But I like other than 5 of the 6, they all have something that really makes them special. And another thing with 5 is just the kind of the weapons weren't that great either. Like it was kind of hard. You couldn't really use them in the stages. They weren't really effective against a lot of the bosses either. So I would say 5 is my least favorite. And out of all of them, man, my favorite. That's such. I don't know. I guess I don't know the answer to that question.
And I don't look at that as a cop-out at all, because you make a really good
I do.
argument, because like everyone has their own various strengths. Like you had commented to me on my top 10 Mega Man video about Mega Man 6 and its sort of Street Fighter style of the various robot masters. And looking at it that way, I see as to why they had Flame Man look the way that he did, Blizzard Man look the way that he did. And in a way, I felt like you're really arguing towards your innovative style and 6 being that way. And yeah. I do have to say, I loved the Rush power adapter set, just because like you had, especially like the Knuckle set, where you had a really strong attack, but the range on it was garbage. And you had the thing where like you got the Rush Jet, where you could fly, but you can't slide or anything like that. And so that's really crappy. But one of the things that I personally, I feel like 2 is my favorite, because 2 introduced or sort of kept something that 1 had, and that was the fact that multiple of the weapons could be effective on multiple robot masters. Right. And that's something that was eliminated from 3 through 6. And it really became a formulaic thing, especially with 4 through 6. It was a specific robot master weapon worked on another one, whereas I just love the fact that in Mega Man 2, you had Flashman was weak against 4 different weapons, and he had a couple others where it was only 1 weapon, and so that was something that I missed, and I definitely respect 3's music, but again, I feel like Mega Man 2 has 3 beat on the music only because of the one song, and that's Dr. Wily's music. And I still to this day think that's not only the best track in Mega Man 2, it's the best track in all Mega Man, and it's the best track on the NES. That's if I would drop this mic, I would, but then y'all wouldn't hear me.
It's funny. When you make a good point about that with Dr. Wily stage 1 track there. So what I'll say about that is, best is always subjective, though, right? So, but what we can say objectively about that is that it's probably the most iconic track in Mega Man. That when that plays, you get that Mega Man nostalgia rush, yes, just kind of running through you. So I think the music is always subjective. And when you look at the music of Mega Man, they're all 6 games have great music.
Oh my gosh!
I can only name, and I just played recently this past June all the Mega Mans, Mega Man 1 through 6, anyways. There's only one bad track. There's only one bad track in 1 through 6, ooh, and that's Starman in Mega Man 5. And I know like that's a hyperbolic thing, I guess, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know. Like people, I don't like it. I just don't. I don't like Starman's track. It grates on me.
That's interesting. Like I don't hate it, but like I guess I could see that. It's to me, 5. One of the things I agree with you on is that 5 is the weakest out of these 6. And 5 probably has one of the weaker soundtracks, and I could see that. I could see Starman kind of. What is it, Jewel Man, or am I thinking? I think he's Mega Man 9, or is it Crystal Man? Yeah, Crystal Man is Mega Man.
Crystal Man.
That one's kind of I kind of like that for me, but even with 5, I feel like it probably has the weakest music, and even still, if you take Starman out of it, like it still has some fantastic themes.
I would say Mega Man 5, in its defense as well, Mega Man 5 in terms of music, the Dark Man,
yes,
Dark Man Castle
that's
theme,
the iconic track in that game.
Man, I'm gonna tell that might be. I mean, I have to go like listen to all of them and really determine that. But like that might be my favorite track. And it's kind of one of those tracks that I liked it back in the day, and as I was playing Smash Brothers.
Yes,
the Smash Brothers for Wii U. They had a remix in there. I was like, man. I don't remember this like hitting me so hard, and I went back and played Mega Man 5. I'm like, yeah, this is a great track. So they made up for it. They made up for it after Starman.
Small diatribe. I loved that. Obviously, we love the fact that Mega Man had representation in the Wii U/3DS version of Smash. But I loved when he got added to Ultimate, that they added an additional like 20 or something Mega Man tracks to Smash Ultimate. When it was in the Wii U and 3DS ones, I think they had like 11 or 12 tracks, and they're like, you know what, Mega Man music is pretty OP. We're gonna add another 20 tracks, and it's just awesome. Love the music in the Mega Man series. Before I ask you the next question in our series, I gotta bug you on something. What are your thoughts on Mega Man 1?
Oh, good question. So, which we have right here, Mega Man 1 with the excellent, I think it's excellent box art here. They call him bad box art Mega Man. I'm calling him excellent box art Mega Man. Mega Man 1 gets a bad rap. It gets a bad rap. I think for its time, it is an amazing game. Amazing game. Obviously, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 make improvements on the formula. So I think it's a little unfair when people kind of compare it to those ones in that sense, because without Mega Man 1, right, we wouldn't have Mega Man at all. But the Robot Masters, I thought they were all fantastic. I thought the weapons were really balanced, actually. I thought there was always situations where you could use the weapons in Mega Man 1. So, I mean, Mega Man 1 can, in some ways, like, I'm going to dog on 5 a little bit more here. But, I kind of, Mega Man 5 was like, okay, you got the Mega Buster, and then beat for Dr. Wily. That's kind of what that game felt like, whereas like the weapons really felt like it took a back seat, where Mega Man 1, like, you needed the bombs and the cutter and the elect beam, you needed the fire, you needed the ice, and they all had multiple uses. The Guts arm was, the first melee type weapon, right? And it's, very situational weapon, so that started in Mega Man. I think the thing, people say it's the hardest one, and I think you had said it, you thought it was the hardest one too. I think, even though I played 3 the most, I think 3 is probably the hardest of the 6.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's, especially when you get to the Doc robot levels, I thought those were pretty intense. But I guess that's always subjective too. But I don't find, I did play Mega Man 1 on the channel about a year and a half ago. And it was didn't do it live. It was for my 8-bit Candle series. But I mean, I kind of cruised through it. There are a lot of tricks in Mega Man 1 as well. A lot of people have a problem with Iceman, right? Everyone's like, Iceman's really hard. We actually, all you have to do, I think it's like, you do like 2 jumps and you shoot elect beam 3 times, and that, like, there's a pattern to it, and you can beat him in like 3 seconds, if that. So there are tricks to get through Mega Man 1. The elect beam, as OP as Metal Blade is in Mega Man 2, elect beam is pretty OP in Mega Man 1. It hits 3 ways, and it hits hard too. It's strong, and it hits most enemies. So I think a lot of people don't give Mega Man 1 a fair shot, and I think it is intimidating, and it can be a little bit clunky. It can be a little bit clunky, but I think it's a really good game, and it's, even with it being the first in the series, I think it can still stand on its own merits. The magnet beam, I think, does break the game a little bit. It does break the game just a little bit. I know there is a part in the first Wily stage or second Wily stage where you need it to pass through, and if you don't, you have to go back and get it. The one thing I will say is that they did well was, like, they put a pit there, so like you're not soft locked out of the game or hard locked out of the game. Where the Mega Man 3, and I know there was a part where you can kind of get soft locked out of the game a little bit. There was, like, in the second Gemini Man stage in the Doc Robots, when you beat, I think it was Flash Man midway through, because you had to fight the Doc Robots. It's 2 bosses in each stage, right? The only thing that made it hard was you faced the Mega Man 2 bosses, but twice in each stage. But you get, after you fought the first one, which I believe was Flash Man, you have to have like Rush Jet or Rush Coil. In the event that you used it all up in the stage, you're stuck. Like and there's no pit to fall in or anything. You're soft locked out.
And the Needleman stage is Needleman Dock Robot is exactly the same way. If you used up your rush jet, and I think it gives you a little like large size energy refill up, but that's not gonna last you. And granted, if you know of the trick to use the second NES controller to hold left on it, you can jump through the pit and live. But like,
you don't want to do it that way, right?
and most people don't even know that. So like, how would you even get past that? It's like, oh well, I have no rush jet power, so I'm kind of screwed unless I can fight those little or dragonflies that fly out and hope that I get refills. It's like that's not fun. Especially,
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad because that happened to me live on Mega Man 3. I was so mad. So I was playing on the PlayStation 4, right? Because the Mega Man collection, it's easier to do a live stream through that than it is in NES. So I was playing it, and I was telling people on the stream, like, hey, you don't want to mess this up. Be very careful because you get one shot at it. And if you don't, you have to kind of fall in the pit and, give up all your lives. So I got through I played this game. Mega Man 3 is my first Mega Man game, all right? So, I played this game a lot. I know what I'm doing. But the PlayStation 4 controller, the D-pad is not the greatest. So, when you're holding left or right, sometimes, it'll input up or down. So I get onto, the ladder, and I'm, holding right. And I must have been holding right just a slightly bit downwards, and I fell off the ladder. And I was like, no! So we're sitting there trying to fight the dragonflies. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to give up all 6 of my lives here and just start over. So embarrassing.
And I hate that kind of stuff. It's like you're really screwed if you don't have that. Oh man. Kind of doing a little bit of a comparison for the Mega Man series, and being given your pedigree of the original NES experience, what is it about these 6 entries that Capcom had done so well that other games on the NES like Castlevania or Super Mario or Kirby's Adventure or Metroid is missing? So those 4 games I mentioned, what is it that those 4 are missing, but that these Mega Man entries seem to have?
With the exception of Mega Man 1 in this, only because it was so early, but because you couldn't, you could continue indefinitely, which was good, but you didn't have a password system or a save or anything like that, right? You get to do Mega Man 1 in all one shot. That was, back in the day, its biggest flaw, I think, and I think that's what really made it hard for people, because you couldn't really go back and it's like, okay, well, I can come back. I'm frustrated. I'm threw my controller at the wall. I'll come back tomorrow. You couldn't do it with Mega Man 1 unless you left your NES on, which your parents would slap you upside the head for, because take up all the power in the house. But but what they all do well is that they do everything well, right? So this Mega Man on NES is the complete package. Especially when you even compare it to any of the other games, there's a lot of the gameplay is there, right? So we know that the gameplay is tight. The levels are creatively done. There's a lot of great platforming and action in Mega Man. It's a great mix of it. It's not too much of one or the other, right? All the stages have a great mix of platforming and action. And they introduce little new things, nuances to each Mega Man game as well. Even Mega Man 5, I'll give it a little bit more credit. The Wave Man stage was fantastic. Yeah. It was it was a take on the Rush Marine in a way, but it was auto-scrolling, essentially a shoot 'em up. And I thought that was that's my favorite stage probably in Mega Man 5, just because it's so different than anything else in the Mega Man games. But they all do something different gameplay-wise. You get the bosses, you can do your boss orders. If you're not looking it up on a guide, which I highly recommend don't doing, go in and just suffer a little bit. That's what we did in the NES days. We had to just suffer a little bit, unless we had the power, Nintendo power. But even then, it was still a rough experience, which is in a good way though. Because it taught you gaming skills. I was actually just at a retro game store a couple days ago in my area, and we were talking about what made Mega Man, the original, so awesome. Because the one guy was saying, I didn't grow up playing them, so I don't have those skills growing up. I can't play it now. And I was like, that's Mega Man's what taught me my platforming skills in terms of being a pretty good gamer. I think it teaches you to it doesn't hold your hand, but at the same time it's fair. It's like, okay, well, you get 2 continues and then you're done. No, you can keep trying. So as long as you persevere, you can keep trying even though it's hard. It's not like it's going to send you back to stage 1 at a lot of Konami games I think suffered from that, whereas luckily Castlevania they didn't do that, but because that would have been really brutal. But a lot of Konami games kind of suffer from that, like, hey, you get a game over and you're done, you're back to stage 1. The ultimate punishment in gameplay. Mega Man doesn't have the ultimate punishment there, which is good in the gameplay. The visuals, and we talked about the music already, right? Where the music is just on point for Mega Man. As bad as Starman is, it's still not horrible. But the track, but the graphics, the visuals are appealing, right? They're not going to blow you away. Some of the cutscenes are nice. Mega Man 4 especially, the cutscenes are fantastic in Mega Man 4. For the NES, it's Ninja Gaiden level, in the beginning there. I get that same kind of feeling I got from Ninja Gaiden with those cutscenes. So you got the visuals are very appealing. It's colorful, but not overly colorful. Everything is like, you can tell like what's in the background, what's in the foreground, what you're jumping on. You're not guessing. When some games you're like, oh, can I jump on that? You're not taking wild leaps of faith all the time. There are some little leaps of faith with the spikes, some of those pits you're taking. They're guilty of a few sins there. But the gameplay, the visuals, the music, and the variety, right? So you get so much replay value. You can play the games in so many different ways, especially like, you might be a frugal with your weapon energy. Like I could be frugal with my weapon energy. Like, oh, I should probably save. It's like, no, like, sometimes you're like, oh, I should use my weapons. We have them for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, what if I have to use this against the boss? But like, once you know like what the weaknesses are and you go through the stage, you're like, oh, you know what? This weapon works really well. There was a video I was watching on someone's channel. It was a Mega Man music channel, chiptune channel, and so it was like they're doing their top 25 Mega Man soundtracks, and Snake Man was up there like in the top 10. And I was like, oh yeah, Snake Man's a good one. And someone commented saying like, oh, I always had such a hard time with this stage in Mega Man 3. And I was just like, hey, you know what? In the Snake Man stage, use the magnet missile, because that will take care of the snake heads for you. Because like the snake heads are tough because you get a series of like 2 or 3 of them and they're shooting the little blast at you. Use the magnet missile, it'll go and it'll hit them. So there's different strategies you can take for all the different stages. And you'll watch some other streamers or other gameplay videos and like, wow, like that's really creative the way they approach it. I never thought of doing it that way. A game that's 20, 30 years old, people are still finding new ways to play them, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. Sorry, I had to gush there a little bit on that question.
No, because it's one of those where we have to gush away because we're super Mega Man fans, and it's also a lot of the linearity that really permeates in something like Castlevania. You have to go from point A to point B from stages 1 through 6, whereas Mega Man, you pick how you're going to play, and that adds the replayability and the fairness, as well as some of them are levels are tough but fair, whereas you run into Castlevania and you're doing the march to death, literally to death, and you're trying to survive the whole plethora of the Medusa heads and the armored knights throwing the axes and everything like that. I don't really recall. The worst moment that I have with that is probably Mega Man 1, the last Dr. Wily stage, when you have to fight the 4 Robot Masters all in a row with 1 bar health, and you get no hit point increases until you're about to fight Dr. Wily himself, and you get just one little, like, one of those large energy refills, and then if you die Dr. Wily, and he's got 2 phases, you go back to the beginning of that entire stage, where you have to get through the stage, then you have to fight the 4 Robot Masters again, and the 2 phases of Dr. Wily. That's probably the most quote-unquote unfair of the Mega Mans, and even then, like, you made it that far, that's enough of a merit anyway. And the rest of the Mega Mans, I don't really feel like when I say rest of the Mega Mans, I mean 2 through 6 aren't like that really bad. And You make a good point about the whole blind jumps thing, where Mega Man doesn't really have the blind jumps, and that's a really big credit to the series itself, where it has, like, you know where you're going, you know where things lead to, and where Mega Man is positioned versus the camera. I've heard a recent release, Sonic Superstars, where the camera following Sonic, or whom you pick, is so zoomed in on your character that there's a lot of blind jumps in that. And this is a 2D Sonic game that was just released, and it's like, you would think after so many years of that type of gameplay being out, especially Sonic, who, you know, admittedly there are a lot of blind jumps in the Sonic series, even the best of the 2D games, but you'd think that they would be able to have the correct panning on the camera. Never an issue with Mega Man's 1 through 6. Granted, something like Super Mario, it's not really an issue either, kind of, unless you're talking about it's Mario 2, the Japanese version, but that's a whole ball of wax, or ball of extraordinarily difficult toughness if you're masochistic.
We want to talk about unfair Mario Brothers 2, the Japanese version.
Yes, and we're not even talking about the Super Mario All-Stars Lost Levels, like, because even that, they eased up on a couple things versus, again, the original NES one. Like, I remember I played the original NES one on the Virtual Console on the Wii, and I'm like, why is this so much harder than Lost Levels? It's the same levels, but it's because Lost Levels helped ease up a little bit. The same kind of design is there, but the physics are different, and it just, overall, it is a little bit easier. Plus, you could start at any world dash level, whereas Lost Levels, you lose all your lives. You're going back to World 1-1, and that's it. But Mario aside, kind of the other video games on the NES, as well as others that had that 8-bit aesthetic, sort of, there are some that actually followed the Mega Man formula. You know, the select a stage, go on to the big bad via a series of linear stages. You got games like DuckTales, even within the last decade, Shovel Knight, going back to the NES, Kid Dracula, or even like straight up clones like the Cryon Conquest.
That was the one I was thinking of when you brought that up.
Have you played any of those, Feral? And if so, which of these do you feel like captured that Mega Man feeling really well?
In terms of capturing the Mega Man feeling, none of them. I mean, none of them captured that feeling you have with Mega Man. Not at all. I mean, I do a lot of them I like. You know, Shovel Knight I liked a lot. I think Shovel Knight did the right thing, though. Shovel Knight did the right thing. It's not, you know, trying to just copy Mega Man outright or anything, or any of the games. Like, it's taking elements of the games, kind of like you look at Sea of Stars, as, you know, in terms of, you know, taking elements from different JRPGs, but just taking the right amount of elements from each one, so it's still its own thing and not just a carbon copy of something else. Where Shovel Knight really did a great job with that, where it took that, you know, it took all those different things. You know, there was one that tried to copy Mega Man quite a bit, that I didn't think did a great job with it, even from its own creator. But you know, I'll leave that one alone for a second there. But Cryon Conquest, I played that a little bit because I heard it was, you know, like Mega Man so much. And it is, but it doesn't do a great job with it because there's no sense of accomplishment with Cryon Conquest. You get all the weapons right from the start. Have you played that one before?
Surprisingly, I haven't.
Yeah, you get all the weapons right from the start, you know, so it is very, like, and it's almost like, it looks like, if you didn't know any better, you'd think it was like a ROM hack of Mega Man to see like the sprites and everything. But there's no sense. You start stage one with all of your abilities.
Really?
And it gets rid of that sense of accomplishment that you have with Mega Man. I played it very briefly, and I was like, I kind of just put it down. I'm like, it's like in my head, I'm like, I'd rather be playing Mega Man. Why am I playing this? So I stopped playing. It's, you know, it was a very, very poor, you know, attempt, I think, at trying to copy the Mega Man formula. Maybe it's a good game on its own, but when you know what it's trying to be and it's not doing it very well, it kind of ruins the experience for you a little bit. But yeah, great question. Great question.
Yeah, and it's funny, even with something like DuckTales, where it was also made by Capcom, and it has that sort of, select a stage sort of thing. You're not gaining any abilities from beating the bosses, except of course the treasure. And then that sort of feeling of like accomplishment doesn't come from gaining the abilities. It comes from the amount of cash that you're able to get Scrooge McDuck even more richer. And that comes from stage exploration, which wasn't really a thing in the Mega Man series. That is more exemplified by DuckTales itself. So in a way, DuckTales has that replayability, not so much to experience using the different weapons, but to explore the stages. So it's a different feeling than Mega Man, but it's also its own sort of feel. And my own little soapbox thing is that for whatever reason, when I played DuckTales 2, I didn't get that same sense, that same sort of feeling. I don't know if it was that the music just didn't hit as much, the colors weren't as vibrant, or whatever it was, but most likely it's because I'm old and it's the nostalgia feels, and I've got the nostalgia feels for the first DuckTales, but there you are.
Yeah, and it's funny, I played DuckTales a little bit growing up, and it never really, I liked it, but it never really, I don't look at DuckTales in the same regard as a lot of other people. I think it's a decent game. I think it's a decent game. Moon theme hits good.
Oh yeah.
We all love everyone loves the Moon theme. And, I mean, that's a Mega Man track. I mean, let's be real, right? So that's essentially a Mega Man track right there. But I mean, other than the little stage select thing, I think that's really more of a Capcom thing, than maybe more than a Mega Man thing. Without the Capcom influence, I don't know how much, it would have really felt like a Mega Man game. But I never really thought of when I played DuckTales as a Mega Man game. Because there was a lot of games really influenced by that whole stage select thing too. Power Blade is another one where you get to pick your stage. A great NES game, different than Mega Man, but it kind of borrows that stage select kind of theme there. And I remember, I'm glad you brought up the stage selects, because that's one of the things I talked about in Game of the Year for Mega Man 3. Spoiler alert, I guess. But but yeah, there's my buddy. He got for Christmas Dr. Mario, and while we love Dr. Mario now as adults, as kids, we're like, it's a puzzle game. We don't want this, even though it's Mario. So he took it back to the store. His mom was very charming, and was like, hey, can we take this back and get a different game? Yeah, sure. So we got Wizards and Warriors 2, Iron Sword. We were like, okay, cool. It's got Fabio on the cover. This is great. He's got a He-Man sword going. This is awesome. This is cool. We popped it in, and we played Wizards and Warriors 1. We were expecting to be a little bit more of the same. I was like, oh, not so much. This game, not the greatest. And then he brought it back again, and they were like, okay, this is the last time. You're not exchanging it after this. So he picks up Mega Man 3. He calls me up. He's like, hey, Feral, I got the game. So he's like, I'm going to come over. We lived in an apartment complex. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, what game did he get this time? And so he comes over. It's, winter time, and we pop it in Mega Man 3, right? So he gets Mega Man 3, we pop it in. And, first you start out with that music, which was just
great.
My
gosh.
It's just I was like, whoa, what are we in for here? Is this Legend of Zelda, or is this what is this? The music was so it was hitting you hard. And then we got in and we're like, whoa, wait, what? We picked the stage? It's not World 1? We're picking the stage? What do we do? And it's funny, our response to that as kids, do we go to the coolest looking one, or which one do we go to? Who's going to be the easiest? And we're like, oh, well, in all the games you go left to right? So maybe we should start at the top left. So we had the moment of being like, hey, pick whatever you want. And we went with what we thought we were supposed to go with.
Oh, man.
And Sparkman was not a good one to start with.
No, that is not an easy stage. Or doing him first as the boss is extremely difficult, because Mega Man's Mega Buster just does one little hit point of damage, but those sparks damage Mega Man for like 10 or something like that.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
we didn't get to the boss. Our 9, 10-year-old selves or however old we were. Yeah, I mean, we weren't getting to that boss. It was Mega Man 3 for us. Like we played it together, which was kind of cool. Like like we took turns with the controller, and we were like, hey, we each would like, hey, master certain parts of stages and certain bosses we'd be better at. And but I was like, Shadow Man though, Shadow Man with the Mega Buster. I don't know. I feel like it's impossible.
Oh my gosh. It's like Elecman from the first one. He's impossible with just the Mega Boss. You have to have the Cut Man. You have to have
hard.
it. Oh. Kind of moving to another system. Have you played any of the Game Boy ones? The original, the 1 through 5?
Yeah, I played a couple of them. I can't remember if it was like 2 or 3 when I first played. I played 2. It's hard to remember because they have the mixture of bosses in them. So like in Mega Man, I think it was Mega Man 3. Like you have 2 bosses from 2 and 2 from 3, or maybe it's 2 from 3 and 2 from 4. So it's hard to remember like which one you played because like 3. I remember I had 3 bosses in there, so it was either Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 3 in Game Boy when I first played that. But it was cool. It was cool to play it on the Game Boy. I don't think it'd be cool if we got a Mega Man Game Boy collection. I don't think it's going to happen, honestly, which is unfortunate, only because of Mega Man 5 on the Game Boy. Because Mega Man 5 was the only game that was really its own thing. So yeah. I think Mega Man 1 through 4, they're okay. They're good experiences for the Game Boy and for your road trips back in the day. But Mega Man 5 was cool because it was so different from anything else in the series.
So it's interesting where the Mega Man ones, where when the Mega Man Anniversary Collection came out for the GameCube and PS2, it was 1 through 8, and then Power Battle 1 and 2. Capcom teased the Mega Man Anniversary Collection for the Game Boy Advance, and it was going to contain Mega Man's 1 through 5. They were working on it. Box art was produced and everything like that, as well as screenshots, and then all of a sudden, it was canceled. There wasn't anything, and it wasn't canceled at the same time that like everything was. I think in what was that 2012 or 2011, including like Mega Man Universe. It wasn't around that time, but like it was a real mensch to really lose those, because it's like these Mega Man games, at least 1, 3, 4, and 5, they were really good. Like you had that sort of like, okay, Mega Man looks like super big on the screen because he is the same level of detail, but again, it's a smaller boxed in thing. But the stage design's good. The Mega Man sort of flow of it doesn't flow as well as the NES versions, but it's still decent. The physics are a little different. The Buster Sword hits a little, but as the Mega Man games went on, especially the 4th and the 5th ones, like the level of detail really was surprising to see on the Game Boy, and where if I remember right, Mega Man 2 for Game Boy was done by a different developer that Capcom sent off than what they used for 1. And a lot of people who have played all of the Mega Man Game Boy games will tell you that the worst one on the Game Boy is 2. And it's really odd because on the NES, the original, you would think, oh, okay, 2 and 3 are like the best, but it by a clear mile, the Game Boy one on the second is the worst. And even stuff where they added like the Mega Man killers, they often, the one for 2, his name is Quint, and he's on like a jackhammer. Oftentimes that one is just like, oh, he's not a real thing, he's not counted. So like Mega Man 5 that brought the Mega Man killers back in, Quint is removed. Mega Man 10 had DLC that brought in the Mega Man killers. Quint is removed again because Capcom has gone so far to disavow Mega Man 2 on the Game Boy. Oh man, I really wish they and the only reason I would counter argue about a Game Boy Mega Man Anniversary Collection is because everything else is coming back on the Switch and other systems. Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2, X1 and 2, the Mega Man Zero, where it contains all the Zero games and the Zero L games, I think it is. And then even us getting the Battle Network collection, like that was amazing, and it surprised Capcom how well that had sold. So what other Mega Man is there besides like Mega Man Legends, which I really hope Capcom, if you're listening, give us Mega Man Legends 1, 2, Tron Bon, the prototype of 3 while you're at it, and the X Command mission. Put it out a Mega Man RPG collection. Come on.
Mega Man RPG collection. That's good ring to it, anyways.
Yeah,
I don't think I'll see it. Mega Man Legend 3 will never see the light of day. No.
Probably not. But come on, Capcom, you got to do it. And while you're there, give us a sort of collection that Konami did with the Advance collection, where you know how it threw in the 3 excellent Advance games, and for no reason you threw in Dracula X. Let's do that with the Game Boy ones, and let's just throw in Power Battles 1 and 2 or the Mega Man X Street Fighter game. Let's throw that in there. Come on, Capcom, please.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about those Mega Man Game Boy collection, and I can, as a Mega Man fan, it hurts me to say this, but I think it's true. That was during the time when Mega Man was on his start of his big decline. When that got canceled, right? So Mega Man is on his decline, starting his decline, in popularity and sales. I think Capcom, it was very much a business move, right? Is that going to sell? Are Mega Man fans even going to buy it? How many of the Mega Man fans are going to buy it, right? So I think from a business standpoint, it was probably a good move to cancel it. However, why not just include it? I mean, I know it's extra work and it's extra money, it's emulation, it's bug testing and all that stuff. But why not include them on the legacy collections? It seems odd not to just kind of include those as either maybe even like kind of bonuses, like, hey, if you complete Mega Man 2, the NES version, maybe you unlock Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy, right? So I think it gives like more incentive to even play the games too, to get people to start playing the games again, and to finish them, have that reward in there, right? I think that would have been kind of a nice thing for Capcom to do. But again, it comes down to business, I think, and would that have been much of a reward? I don't know. You look at Mega Man and Base, right? That game, like that's a game that really should have been on the Mega Man Legacy Collection. Why wasn't that there?
Yeah,
I know.
Absolutely, that should have been on the Mega Man Legacy Collection too, because it fits the kind of Super Nintendo, PlayStation aesthetic, especially Mega Man 8, because Mega Man and Base used assets from Mega Man 8, but used them on the Super Nintendo, and it was a game where you had all of the platforming, all of the weapons and everything like that, but none of the annoying voice sampling or anything like that. It was one of the most solid versions of Mega Man. It was tough as nails, but it was still really, really solid. And it's funny too, with the Game Boy Advance thing, if I remember right, they canceled the Game Boy Legacy Collection that was supposed to be on the Advance in 05 and 06. And I'm just looking on like the history of like Mega Man games around then. They were really hitting the Battle Network series and Star Force series around that time, because like from 05 to 09, they released Battle Network 6, all 3 of the Star Force games, and then like that Rock Band EXE operating shooting star game, whatever that was. So it's like, oh, we're not focusing on platforming, we're focusing on RPG like games. We don't want to confuse people or whatever their sort of mentality was. And there were real business decisions where, okay, these tactical games are selling because it's got that kind of Pokemon Red and Blue sort of feel that the Battle Network series were trying to capture with their games. One little lonesome game pulling from platforming games from rudimentary Game Boy titles in the early 90s. They were probably thinking, you're right, they're not going to sell. Let's go ahead and give this the old heave ho. And it was really sad to see. It was as a Mega Man fan, it was tough too, because like we were, especially when we talk about what we're talking about today, what makes the original Mega Man games so great, right? So as a Mega Man fan, I guess this is
confessions with FeralInferno here, but I kind of despised those like Star Force and EXE and all these other games. I was not a fan of them. It was like, this isn't Mega Man. Even, I know this is gonna get some hate from Mega Man, some Mega Man fans out there, but I didn't like Mega Man Legends either. It wasn't Mega Man to me. I didn't like the 3D aspects of it. Even though I was young at the time, I was kind of like old man yelling at Cloud, yelling at pixelated Cloud, anyways. It wasn't Mega Man. Whereas Mega Man X, Mega Man Zero kind of had that, still that platforming. Even the Mega Man Zero, Mega Man X it changed the formula a little bit. Mega Man Zero did, and it's like it had like elements of Mega Man still there, but it wasn't classic Mega Man. It wasn't all about the gameplay anymore. When you talk about like even the newer Mega Man games, I did enjoy Mega Man 11. I know it's got some detractors to it. I think you maybe you didn't like it as much either, if I remember correctly. I thought they did a nice job with it. I mean, it could have been better. Don't get me wrong, but my biggest gripe with it was solvable. At least my biggest gripe with it was like, I don't need a story for these games. I don't need voice acting for these games. So the very first thing I did, when you pop in Mega Man 11, you get like this horrible voice acting story being told that it's like, okay. And so I immediately go in the options. I'm like, turn voice acting off. That was my biggest gripe with Mega Man 11, but it was still a nice return to form for the Mega Man series.
Yeah, and for me, with Mega Man 11 itself, it's a thing where I appreciated all the different difficulty settings and everything like that. My big thing with 11 is that I have a very small dinosaur brain when it comes to Mega Man itself. So when it added in the whole gear system and trying to implement that, and okay, if you use it and then you use it too much, it weakens Mega Man. And like, I'm already dealing with, the standard, like a standard tough game and everything like that. I don't want him weaker. I don't want him worse. And then I'm having to deal with fighting bosses getting through this. I'm just not going to use it. And then some of the bosses, like, you have to use it. Then you have to deal with being weakened. And then they are using their time gear system against you when you're weakened. And so like, I'm getting murdered like crazy, and like I'm having the old man thing where I'm hitting the wrong buttons on the L and R to try and like switch the weapons, but it's setting off the time gear, and like, okay, I'm not having a good time. It's like Sans, I'm gonna have a bad time by using the time gear thing.
It's a good point. It's a good point. You know what? When you were just saying that, what it kind of reminds me of a little bit, and you reminded me of like how I had to kind of like learn when I was playing Mega Man 11, like, oh, like this is different. Like, it's a part of the gameplay. You need to use it, and it helps in a lot of places too. And in some cases, it makes the game a little bit easier, especially the time gear, and especially once you can upgrade the gears too, right? So like once you upgrade time gear, so you move, regular speed and slow speed, then time gear is like it's a game changer. So that was awesome. But like, what you reminded me of with the control scheme was kind of like with Kid Icarus Uprising, right? It had that control scheme that you had to learn and get used to. But once you do though get used to like how the game works, the mechanics work, like it almost becomes it's an investment of time, which and granted, a lot of people aren't willing to put into a game, especially if they don't have the nostalgia for it, like we might have. But once you do, it's like, okay, it's like second nature. Like, hey, you get to a point in Mega Man 11, and it's like, oh, you know what? Time gear is going to help you. Like, it's like something in your brain kind of just triggers, and you're like, okay, time gear. Like, and it's going to help you get through it. But I remember that, I played Blockman first, and I was trying to use time gear and power gear, and I was trying to like learn the timing of each one too, right? Like you said, you use it too much, you get weakened and all this. So it was learning that, and my experience may be a little bit different how I felt. I felt like I was that 9-year-old kid again playing Mega Man, and trying to learn how do I do this? How do I master this? How does this like translate into like my Mega Man skills too at the same time? Like for me it was a great experience, like trying to just have another Mega Man game, and I thought they did a nice job with it. Again, there could be some improvements there, but without the time gear system though, it would have just the time and power gear system, the gear system. I think it would have just been another Mega Man game. I think the gear system actually made it kind of special.
No, that's definitely good points. One of the big questions with Mega Man 11 having been released 5 years ago now,
Yeah.
and with 11 being the biggest selling Mega Man entry for the mainline series, what do we think of the chances of Mega Man 12 being announced or coming out, with the caveat of knowing that Capcom has trademarked the titles Mega Man 12, 13, and 14?
So this might come off a little pessimistic, but if you would have asked me after the release of Mega Man 11, I would have said very strong. You got it's a whole new system, right? They're not just doing the 8-bit stuff, and that's where the Mega Man sequels came from, right? We only got Mega Man 1 through 6, right? These are all built off the same system, the same graphics, right? There's upgrades to the visuals and graphics and music and all that stuff. Don't get me wrong, but there's a template, and there's a reason why we get a new Mega Man game like every year or so back then. So that my thought was like, hey, okay, maybe Mega Man maybe 1 through 3, maybe a trilogy here, right, of games. Mega Man 11, 12, 13 was what I was kind of thinking would happen, but then it didn't happen. And then I know I think it was is it the lead producer or director? He's left Capcom now from the game. So some of the team is gone that worked on the game. So when I heard that news, this was maybe a few months ago, maybe 6 months ago, I can't remember. But I heard that news, and I saw Mega Man 11, and I was like, no. I don't think it's very likely that we get a Mega Man 12 anytime soon. I don't know if we will ever see another Mega Man 11 might be it. I think what I'd like to see from the series is maybe do a Mega Man 12, maybe even like close it out. I wouldn't mind even some closure with the Mega Man series, connecting Mega Man Classic to Mega Man X. I think that would be a really cool game, kind of go out with a bang. I think that would be a really great thing for Capcom to do, to like not leave us kind of in Mega Man fans in this limbo that we're in. So I do feel like we're in a Mega Man limbo. Like, Capcom hasn't said, hey, it's dead. There's no more Mega Man, right? They tease us, right? They're holding that carrot on the stick.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, anniversary collection or legacy collections 1 and 2, and they keep releasing it. Hey, here's a Mega Man and Smash Brothers. Here's Mega Man Amiibos. Here's all the other Mega Man
Castlevania, essentially, because they keep doing all of these collections with Castlevania, just like what you're saying too with the Mega Man collections. It's like they're teasing us, like you said.
Yeah. Well, we know what the real thing is. They need to keep the IP alive. Right, so you need to release something to keep that IP alive a little bit, anyways. So they can at least still, milk the cow, right? So
and
they
gauge
can still get
interest
some
too.
Money out of it. What's that?
As well as gauge interest, because if
sure.
if these
Absolutely.
collections are selling and people are buying them, which I think the only reason why I think the viability of a Mega Man 12 is a little bit higher is just because of Capcom continually being surprised at how well like these collections, especially a legacy collection, sells, where they see, oh, hey, what do you know? People like Mega Man. It was the series that helped to get Capcom, one of the many things that helped to get Capcom to where it was at. But like, you make very good points about the fact that you got all the original producers for 11 that are gone, but it's at the same time, it's not that hard to reproduce or produce a new Mega Man game with a different team, or bring the party back, bring everybody back, and maybe they make nice with KJ Inafune and have him be a collaborator. Although that whole thing he did not go out. That would be like Hideo Kojima coming back to Konami, and that may not be happening anytime soon.
There's a lot of burned bridges there with Inafune, and
Oh yeah.
it's not just with Capcom, but I think it's with the fans as well. Um, I was really excited for Mighty Number Nine. I was very excited for it. You look at the initial screenshots, and I was like, okay, this is what I want. I didn't really like Beck's design compared to Mega Man, but I was like, it's the gameplay. What I'm really there for, right? It's gonna be Mega Man. And then like it started, it got. I think he and the project got too full of itself and
Yes.
lost vision. They lost vision of the heart and soul of what the Mega Man experience was supposed to be and what people wanted. And it was not. You look at those first screenshots and it looked amazing. And then they were like, oh, let's do 3D or more 3D type graphics and all this other stuff. And it just, let's put story in here and voice acting, and we'll add Peter from Family Guy in here. And
It's a really thing where he's trying to sell the world and everything, and it's like the actual end product ends up being something that is drastically different than what was promised, and it doesn't even feel like Mega Man. I'm sorry, but like maybe there are people that will rush to defend the game, and kudos to you if you enjoyed it, but for me,
oh yeah,
it does not feel like Mega Man. Kind of getting back to when we made the leap from the 8-bit to the 16, because you mentioned how Mega Man 12, I agree with you. I'd like closure. Let's have Mega Man 12 end with Dr. Light letting Rock go off into the sunset with Russian Roll, and it'll end with Dr. Light tinkering on a project he's been working on for several years and won't be ready until after his own lifetime, and it'll show the shell of Mega Man X. When Mega Man made the leap to 16-bit consoles with X1, X2, X3, and let's touch upon 7 and Mega Man and Base. Did you play any of these Super Nintendo Mega Man entries? And I just want to know which ones are your favorite.
I definitely, I was a big Super Nintendo guy, and when I was at that retro game store, I was actually looking for Mega Man 7. It's the one, physical cartridge I'm missing here for Mega Man, classic Mega Man series. And it's now like one of the most expensive ones, if not the most expensive, I believe. So I had Mega Man 7. I enjoyed it quite a bit. There were some things about Mega Man 7, I think, that sent the Mega Man series in the wrong direction, though. Even I'm an RPG guy. I like my RPGs, but I don't like my RPGs in games that they don't need to be in. It worked well for a game like Castlevania, which was cool. I don't think it works well for a game like Mega Man, where you need to go. So like Mega Man 7 introduced the shop with auto, and you have to get the bolts in the stages, the farming. That. Of course, like you want to do it, right? You want to collect everything and get all the power ups and upgrades and everything. And of course, it got like totally like a little out of hand with Mega Man 8, with all the different things. But they had some cool power ups, and they don't get me wrong. But Mega Man 7, I think it did start taking it in a weird direction, in terms of that wasn't great in terms of that collectability piece of it, the farming that you had to do, and then also just having starting out with 4 robot masters, that took away from the replayability of the game, like where you could play it in so many different types of ways, whereas you had to you had to defeat the first 4 to get to the mid stage, and then you'd go to the next 4 boss robot masters. And I know that was an effort to probably maybe bring some other players into the game and not have to try to guess, hey, which one of these 8 should I start with, right? Because there's a couple, you know, there's at least 1 or 2 that you're supposed to start with, right? So maybe it was an effort to make the game a little bit more accessible, but it did totally hurt the replayability of the game. I did like Mega Man 7 quite a bit, though. I did like Mega Man 7. You know, there was a Mega Man had interesting life on the Super Nintendo, right? So, you know, there was what, 3 classic games essentially, if you count Mega Man Soccer as a classic entry. You know, one that we didn't get here in North America with Mega Man and Bass.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I'm definitely with you regarding the whole farming aspect of the bolts and everything. And I think the trick on that was supposed to be using the rush search, because there was a number of places where there would be giant bolts, as well as one that would reduce the amount of bolts that you would have to spend by giving it to auto, and everything costs half. And like, I didn't like how you started with the four Robot Masters too. Like, there's a password that will allow you to start with 8 Robot Masters, but why?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Why have that? And one of the cool things with 7 that I enjoyed were the crapload of Easter eggs, like the password that has the Street Fighter 2 mode where it's Mega Man versus Bass, or the Easter egg where if you hold down, I think it's A or down when you're selecting Shade Man, and it plays the Ghosts and Goblins theme for both the intro and the stage music. Like, and even when you play it normally, you see Mega Man look to his left and you see the moon coming out of the clouds, and that's straight out of Ghosts and Goblins. It's just a whole bunch of like things where you can tell the creators of that, it's sort of a love letter to not only Mega Man, but just Capcom games in general. Like, I love that when Capcom is able to do that with its games. But like, one of the things that I was going to ask, and you really helped hit this, was if there's anything that was missing with these Super Nintendo entries that were in the original NES ones. And I just, the physics in both Mega Man and Bass as well as Mega Man and 7 didn't feel as tight as they did in the NES ones. In Mega Man 7 in particular, Mega Man feels a little bit more floaty, whereas I know in X1 through 3, that sort of tightness was in there, and it's personified even more with stuff like the slide dash that they added in X1 through 3. But X1 through 3 had a sort of speed and like, let's go through the levels and let's go through everything as precisely and as quickly as we can, that Mega Man didn't really need. And like, it's not to say like there's a rush with it there, but there was just a sense of like that whole streamlined speed that X1 through 3 had, at 1 through 6 of the original NES ones. Just, you know, Mega Man didn't really have that, didn't need it, even with the implementation of the slide in Mega Man 3. Like, I didn't find myself sliding through everything to go through these stages quickly, although you could, and speedrunners certainly can. Anything else that I'm missing on with these Super Nintendo entries, Feral?
You know, good point with Mega Man 7. I'll say it was a little bit floatier. It was different. It felt different. Because I remember when I first played Mega Man 7, I remember the moment I put it in Super Nintendo. It was actually, we put up and we were playing in my brother's room for whatever reason. But we brought the Super Nintendo up and brought it in his room. We played Mega Man 7 together. And I remember like playing all 6, you know, NES entries. Like, it didn't feel the same. Not bad. It just didn't feel the same as that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either, right? Yeah. So it's a little bit more of a freshness. And what I'll say is, even though it's different, it worked, I think, for the stages, and the gameplay still, it felt good. I think the gameplay in Mega Man 7 is very good, and I think they tailored the stages to change for the changes in like Mega Man's size is a little bit different as well. I think they tailored everything properly. I do think the gameplay, when you take out all the other stuff I was kind of bringing it up, I think the gameplay is actually very good, and the Robot Masters, like, they, up until that point, I don't think Mega Man ever looked so good. I mean, I like Mega Man X as a great game, but graphic standpoint, I thought Mega Man 7 might be my favorite in terms of in terms of visuals. It might be my favorite one.
Look, one thing I want to vent about with 7, well, vent's not the right word, gush. I just have to gush about the bosses in Mega Man 7. Like the Robot Masters, they look phenomenal, fantastic. Nearly all of the boss fights are, probably out of all the first 7 Mega Mans, I want to say the Robot Master fights are probably the combination of the tough but fair. It was one of the things where I wanted to fight all 8 Robot Masters with just the Mega Buster, and it was fun. And like I remember it being a thing with like Freeze Man, for example, like where he's kind of like that showboaty type of style, but like you fight him and it's still, even with the Mega Buster, like it's hard, but it's like I want to fight him with just go mano a mano with the power. Using the flame thing, it sort of cheapens it. And just for fun, one little Easter egg is if you take his ability and you hit him with it, it freezes the game. Like it freezes the game where Mega Man can't move, and then he shows off with his little like kind of style thing, his little move there, and then it continues from then on. It's one of the many little myriad of Easter eggs. I cannot agree with you enough or more with how well 7 looked. To that end, let's go to Mega Man 8. Mega Man 8 between 1 and 11 is by far my least favorite Mega Man game. I like it the least because I don't like the way Mega Man and the sprites look. I hate the voice acting, the overall aesthetics, and just it feels like Mega Man is really good for having sort of that colorful design, but I feel like it takes those colors and pastelifies it. Everything looks a little bit too pastel. It's too, it almost looks a little too juniorish. Do I say that? Almost kiddyish. And Mega Man isn't about that like kiddishness. And one of the things I liked with Mega Man 11's voice acting is they lowered Mega Man's voice a few octaves, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I could not stand Mega Man's voice in Mega Man 8, and I'm like, Mega Man 8 was the last Mega Man that I beat, not counting 11. Not to make sure I qualify that. I finally beat Mega Man 8 on Mega Man Legacy Collection 2 on the Switch. I'd never beat it before, not even in the Mega Man Anniversary Collection.
Interesting.
Feral, I gotta know, what are your thoughts on Mega Man 8?
I have a few thoughts on Mega Man 8, positive and negative, of course. But and what I'll say is I liked Mega Man Soccer on Super Nintendo. I don't like, and like I talked about like RPGs, and I like RPGs, but I don't like RPGs in my Mega Man. I don't like my Mega Man Soccer in my Mega Man classic games. So the ball, the soccer ball, I'm not a fan. Not a fan of the soccer ball for Mega Man 8. And they force you to use it quite a bit, if I remember correctly. There's quite a few situations where you have to use it, and I thought it was very cumbersome. If Mega Man 7 was zoomed in, Mega Man 8 was very zoomed out, which felt a little odd. Mega Man 8, there's also the jump, slide, jump, slide, jump, slide. There's that stage. Everyone, knows like that the horror of that stage. I think they did it twice. It was a Wily stage, I think, that maybe did it as well. It's been a little while since I played Mega Man 8, but I think it's got some good things about it too. I think of Mega Man 8 a lot like Mega Man 5, actually, in some ways, where it does have some unique stuff. So like Mega Man 5, we talked about, the Wave Man stage, and you've got the shoot 'em up stage. There's another shoot 'em up stage in Mega Man 8 with, you get the different power-ups. It's very, very Gradius-like in a way, or maybe even Parodius. But you get like the different, like, Auto comes in, Flip Top or Eddie comes in. I think you're on Rush, all your little buddies come in. I thought that was a really cool thing as a Mega Man fan, to kind of have like all your buddies all at once. I think you get beat in there, helping you out, with the different power-ups. And I thought that was really, really cool. So there were some good things in Mega Man 8. Again, we talked about the RPG elements. As much as I don't like having them there, like some of the things, the rewards were pretty cool, like changing your Mega Buster. like I think there was a laser like from Contra, and like you could get in there, and I think maybe there was a spread shot you could change your Mega Buster to from the shop. It's been a little while, but
Yeah,
it was
same
kind of
here.
cool to change up your Mega Buster, the power of your Mega Buster was not just like a regular blast. It was kind of almost like a little bit of a Mega Man X feel to it. You know, you can change up your armors and your busters in Mega Man X games. So there has some merits. You know, trying, you know, the cinema scenes and the voice acting, I thought were pretty cool for Mega Man X4. So I thought Mega Man X had a really nice jump to the PlayStation for Mega Man X4 anyways. X5 and X6 are a different story. But Mega Man 8, I think, you know, it felt a little jarring. In a weird, some ways bad, some ways good. And it's a kind of a wishy-washy answer. But I don't have the same fondness for 8, as I guess is what I'll say, as I do as for the first 7 entries. The fondness of it and my need to play it. I remember the first time I saw it was at my dad was doing some work at someone's house, and I came in and the kid there was playing PlayStation, and I didn't have one yet. And I was like, "Oh, whoa, Mega Man! There's a Mega Man game on PlayStation. Cool!" And I was watching. I was like, "Man, this feels different." And it wasn't like, "Hey, this is bad or good." It was just different. It was just kind of a different experience. But I think it has its like. I don't think there's a bad Mega Man game out of the 11 classic games anyways. Mega Man 8 just it hits differently. It hits differently.
No, that's a really good way to call that. And I kind of want to wrap up our discussion with how Mega Man after 8 went back to that classic 8-bit style for both the ninth and 10th entries. What are your thoughts on these two? What did you like? What worked? What didn't? And did you get that classic Mega Man feeling from them?
This is going to come off as a fan that can't be pleased, I guess. But when I first saw it, mixed emotions. The negative part of me was like, "Wow, this is lazy." This is what I thought. This is like this is like we're going from like. I thought that was also very jarring going from 8 to 9. You know, especially with all the years in between. But you know, it's like going back to the 8-bit style. Like it was, and at the same time, it was kind of cool because like I like the 8-bit style, but I also wanted maybe something. I wanted the next evolution. I wanted Mega Man to keep growing because my fear with that too was, okay, well, this is an easier game to make. It's an easier game to make, but then maybe making a real true Mega Man 9. So maybe do we get more Mega Man entries, or does this kind of like signal the end of the series? Because this means Capcom, Mega Man 9, you know, as cool as it was, it meant Capcom was not willing to put the money into Mega Man. Because it's cool, don't get me wrong, but like there's no, like, the money's not in there. You know, so they're not willing to invest in the Mega Man. That means Mega Man's not making them money. So I mean, I'm looking at I was also going to school at the time for finance and everything. So I'm understanding all these things. I'm taking marketing classes. I'm understanding all these different concepts. So at the same time, it was cool and very mixed emotions on that. What I didn't, I thought they made some good strides with it. Getting rid of the Mega Buster. Right, they got rid of the Mega Buster and the slide, if I remember correctly, with Mega Man 9.
Yeah.
You know, I thought the slide could have stayed in. The Mega Buster, like, yeah, you know what, the Mega Buster can kind of break some of the games a little bit. You know, where in terms of using the weapons, whereas people would like use the charge up Mega Buster instead of using the weapons. So you know, like, okay, that's kind of cool, but like I would have liked the slide because there were times like, okay, it's Mega Man 9. I'm expecting to be able to slide. I'm expecting to be able to charge as well. So that was a little bit weird for me. But the one thing, like, okay, well, you're going to go back to basics, but we're going to keep all the bolts in the store. The one thing I didn't like.
Yeah, and it was both of the games too had autos store, so it's like, okay, you're kind of keeping that RPG like mechanic, but and you can have I think they had I know at least the 10th game had the equalizer in it. But like no, everything else but you could have Proto Man, aka Blues, that has the slide and has the Mega Buster, but he gets hit, he takes twice the damage, and he moves twice as much.
Poor Proto Man. I love Proto Man. He's one of my favorite Mega Man characters. And I was like, oh, cool, I get to play as Proto Man. Oh, he's got the Mega Buster. He can do all these cool things. Great. And then I played it and I was like, oh man, it's a bit rough. You know, it take like maybe, I think there was an elephant, I think mini boss. And I was like, I took like 2 hits and I was done. I'm like, oh, okay, this might be a little bit rough even for FeralInferno here. So
yeah, for me, like the core guts of it felt like Mega Man. Like you got the music, you had the bosses. I would say Mega Man 9 is probably the second hardest of the mainline games, especially that last run against Dr. Wily. For me, that was probably one of the hardest like bosses that I've had to deal with for a Mega Man game. But like, I think the biggest thing for me with 9 and 10 is like my favorite part for both is absolutely the music, and then like the gameplay and environments. Like it felt like with 6, how 6 looked, I think out of all of 1 through 6 and 9 and 10, 6 had some of the most beautiful environments. I mean, look at Tomahawk Man with that sunset. Like you got something where you're capturing that old west feel, but you got that sunset that rivals like the sunset thing from like Rygar. It looks like that and then some. And 9 and 10 managed to do that, but it shouldn't be a surprise because 9 and 10 has, like you said, that sort of like lower effort. Yep, see right there, a physical copy of 6. And 9 and 10 has that sort of like aesthetic, but like you're releasing this in 2008 and 2010. You make really salient points about the whole like Mega Man's not being where the money is being put, and it's proof positive that Capcom was going in the wrong direction for everything, because this was when they were doing what all the Japanese companies were doing at the time and chasing after Western trends with games like Bionic Commando, where you're trying to chase after these trends with things that just are incoherent and don't make sense, like your bionic arm that's also your wife. And you got stuff where you got Resident Evils 5 and 6 where you got Boulder punching Chris, and you're chasing after these Western trends, and it's like I really felt like these Japanese companies should have stuck with what they knew and what went well. And in Capcom's case, it at the time it was classic Mega Man, or even up-resing Mega Man and keeping with the trend what 8 was doing. But in my opinion, maybe make it a little bit more not sounding so pastel, it's looking so pastel, sounding so kiddish, but sort of keeping that design and sort of keeping with what worked for like Street Fighter and everything like that, because Street Fighter was always running well, and just sort of sticking with that. And like all the Japanese designers, not all of them, that blanket statements don't help anybody, but like I remember like Square Enix kind of doing that with some of their properties and everything. It's like it was a really weird time, the aughts, and it was a time where I was grateful for what we got for Mega Man 9 and 10, because they were kind of trying to please us old dogs, but there are some of us that want to kind of go back to how it was, but also we want to kind of move on. Like, let's see where Mega Man could go. And 11 helped to capture that really well. Not for me with my dinosaur hindbrain, like trying to deal with the gear system. Capcom, keep doing that. I need to learn and grow, as do everybody. Keep the time gear system, because I feel like I just probably needed more time to handle that. But yeah, like I really felt like 9 and 10 captured that feeling, but maybe to a fault. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, here's a problem with 9 and 10. Okay, they're nostalgia hits. Okay, so then they're designed as such, and they even designed really cool, like weird, like 80s, early 90s, like box art for it, which was really cool, right?
Yes.
Like remember that? do we have a physical version of that? Okay, you
That's
designed this really cool box art for it, but like, you can't get it. You can't buy it physically. Like, what is that? Like, how is it? Like, it's a weird. It was a weird decision making from Capcom all over. Like, and then kudos though for them making it. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's better than not getting anything and not trying to cater to our nostalgia. But if you're gonna do that, go all the way.
Yes.
And I know it's not. It wouldn't have been a smart business move, most likely, right? There would have been like guys like maybe you and me who'd buy it, but you have to market to the masses, right? So I get it, but it was a weird amalgam for where it hit in some ways, and other ways they hit flat for 9 and 10. I've only played through 10 once, and again, I'll be going through on my calendar anyways. I've got planned to play 7 through 11 this coming up Mega June, so it'd be good to play through 10 again, so I can get another. I didn't have a great experience at playing through it the first time. Maybe that's changed. It's been I really I bit the bullet and said, okay, I'm going to play, because it was right before Mega Man 11 came out, so I finished it that morning. So I was also rushing through it as well, to be fair. But I'm going to go with fresh legs and try to give Mega Man 10 another fair shot. I enjoyed 9, but the weapons systems. I thought they, just to go back to what we were talking about with 11. I thought they did a great job with the weapons in 11. I thought they were useful in the stages. And then there were different variations of them using the power gear system as well. And that was kind of a little bit of a nod from Mega Man X, because you could do that with, with Mega Man X1, you got the Zero Buster. You could charge up the other weapons, and you get different variations and usually more powerful versions of those weapons. Or maybe you were more like the boss. So you think of like a Mega Man X, you could charge up Sting Chameleons. It's like a triple shot or whatever. Normally it's just not that great, but if you charge it up, you get like camouflage where you're like invincible for like a couple seconds, kind of like Sting Chameleon was. So you get a little bit of that in Mega Man 11, whereas you didn't get there was no evolution. There's a little bit of a de-evolution, I guess you could say, with Mega Man 9 and 10. Like we were saying, it's not driving the series forward, and I think that's why there was such a large gap in between 10 and 11. It was like, where do you go? How do you go there? And how do you make it profitable?
Yeah, and it's like where 10 came out, I think, in 2010, and then 11 came out in 2018. You had a thing where Mega Man Universe was announced, I think, in 2011, where not only could you customize your Mega Man, you could create your own stages. And this was like 3 or 4 years or something like that before Super Mario Maker 1 was even released, where you could, it's announced you can make your stages and do stuff like that. Oh, look, Ryu from Street Fighter is in there, and he uses his Hadouken as his quote-unquote power buster, and it's got all of this sort of cool stuff in there, and then it's canceled. I heard that they tried to save it by just turning it into a Mega Man 2 remaster, but even then Capcom said no, we're scrapping that. We're scrapping Mega Man Legends 3 for the 3DS. We're scrapping everything with Mega Man. And I think that was around the time where there was the falling out between Capcom and Keiji and Inafune. There was just a lot of Mega Man stuff just going on, and all of those projects were, so it wasn't like Mega Man 10 was planned to be the last one. There was a lot of stuff that was still on the books, but then that was it.
Well, think about the failures, though, too. Think about the failures with Mega Man during that time in Inafune, right? So think about Mega Man X 7 and 8. Those did not sell well. They didn't, they were not received well. Mega Man X7 is considered probably one of the worst Mega Man games, period.
Yep.
I think maybe we sometimes, rightfully so, we dog on Capcom a little bit here, but maybe Inafune is a little bit to blame too. Is maybe he got a little too full of himself. This is just thinking out loud, I guess. But and when you think about what happened with Mighty Number 9, and what was the other one? They had another one that never. It was a Mega Man Legends spiritual successor as well. They were doing. It was called, was it Red Dash or something like that? I can't remember the name of it now, but he's awesome. He's like trying to get like anime deals for these things before they even come out, and he's got other Kickstarters coming out. How full of himself did he, or overconfident maybe did he and some of his team maybe get, trying to come up with some of these new ideas and trying to propel the series forward. And then is it just like the perfect storm that killed the series,
or is it something where we have the music genre problem where you release Rock Bands 1 through 3 and like 3 different iterations of that, and Guitar Hero's 3 World Tour, and Guitar Hero Van Halen, and Rock Band Beatles, and Guitar Hero Pink, and DJ Hero? Were we oversaturated with Mega Man at that point? Was that potentially another thing where there's so much Mega Man that it's diluted everything? Because when Mega Man came out as the mainline series, 1 through 6 came out in a 7-year period. You had the NES Rock Board game also on the NES in Japan only. Super Nintendo, you had all those games. You had Rock Band, you had Mega Man Soccer, and then you had all the PlayStation ones. And then for the Game Boy, as I mentioned, the Mega Man Battle Network collection is 1 through 6, and 3 through 6 are 2 different versions. So that Legacy collection has 10 different games, and that all came out in like a 6-year period in the aughts. On top of the Mega Man Zero collection has 6 games released within a 6-year period. Is it the fact that Capcom just oversaturated and diluted the brand and diluted the Mega Man name?
Yeah, well, great point. Mega Man's always had an oversaturation problem, even when we were kids, right? And especially when we were kids, because games are like around the same price as they were back in the 80s and 90s, right? So but take into account inflation, games technically costed a whole lot more back then. And I'll talk about my own experience here. There's a reason why Mega Man 5 is my least played Mega Man game. Is because, okay, well, I like Mega Man, don't get me wrong, but like there's other games I want to play too, right? I can't just spend all my money on Mega Man games or like keep asking for Mega Man. Hey, I want to play Zelda, I want to play Kid Icarus, I want to play Mario, I want to play Contra. Oh, they got Super Nintendo on the horizon as well. So and then Mega Man 5 didn't help itself with not innovating properly, whereas Mega Man 6 rectified that a little bit. And although Mega Man 6 was one we almost didn't get. Capcom wasn't going to bring out, and they didn't actually, technically didn't bring out.
Nintendo published it.
They did. There's no Capcom logo on there, so it's always had an oversaturation problem, but there was always demand for it too at the same time, right? So if it's selling, it's selling, but that's a short-term vision from Capcom too, right? So, hey, it's selling now, but like, how is that going to affect future sales? And now they go the opposite route. So now it's undersaturation, I would call it, because there's a demand for Mega Man out there. And here's the thing: Mega Man 11 sold really well, but it couldn't have cost the amount of money to develop Mega Man 11 as it does Street Fighter, the new Street Fighters, the new Resident Evils, the Monster Hunters especially.
Oh my gosh.
It's not going to cost, and that's why we don't get a new Breath of Fire game, and we'll never see another Breath of Fire game, right? That's the reasons, because there's no money. It's not going to make them money. The amount of time and resources you put into an RPG like that. So very unlikely we'll see another Breath of Fire. But Mega Man's different. Like Mega Man, like you don't need to break the bank with Mega Man, right? And it's going to sell. So maybe Capcom's, if we want to look at maybe the positive side of it, maybe Capcom's thoughts are, hey, you know what? Maybe we say, Mega Man's more of a special event now, and we get that. We're driving up the hype train with the Mega Man fans, and you go on to Reddit, and it's like, oh well, it's just never going to happen. Another problem Capcom has, though, is that they put themselves in a hole having so many different Mega Man franchises. So if you go over to something like Reddit and look at, there's polls all the time. Should Capcom do the next game? Should it be Mega Man 12, Mega Man X9, or should it be Mega Man Legends 3? And you get in the comments, and it gets very polarizing.
And because a lot of times those are very, very different games. The closest set is maybe X9 and the mainline Mega Man series, and that's not really the case either, because isn't X7 and X8, weren't those 3D? So wouldn't that make X9 have to be 3D? Doesn't have to be. I mean, you could return it back to 2D style. So
that's what they do with the nines, right? So might as well.
so like you got the mainline 2D platformer with the mainline series. You got 3D with X. You've got action RPG with Legends. You got tactical RPG with the Battle Network. You've got Dark Souls like with the Mega Man Zero. And when I say Dark Souls, I mean like difficulty type. People throw around Dark Souls and it just means it's hard as nails, almost unfair. You definitely make a good point. One of the things, a little bit of a tidbit that made me very sad when I was doing some research for this, and I think I'm going to guess you already know this, but for the audience, are you surprised to hear that the best-selling Mega Man game on the NES, the second one, only sold 1.5 million copies globally and is number 42 out of the best-selling games on the original NES?
Am I surprised by it?
Yeah.
No, it's different. It was a different time. Mega Man was still new. And then it was harder to get games too. Like I remember I played Mega Man 3 first, and then trying to find Mega Man 2 after that was very difficult, actually. Trying to find it in stores.
And it's just like, I'm just like, how? And I grew up being the big video game nerd, and anybody who had an NES and didn't play very much had a copy of Mega Man 2 with it. Usually not any other Mega Man game, if I'm being honest. Maybe some of them had 3, but anybody who wasn't into video games and had an NES at least had Mega Man 2. So I'm like, really? Number 42? Like that was depressing. So when I heard Mega Man 11 was the most highest sold copy of Mega Man, I'm like, great, that's awesome. And when you talk about cost to produce, that's a good point, because Mega Man 11, when that sold digitally for like $20 or $30 or something like that. And there were physical copies of it that was like $30 or $40. And Mega Man 2, when it came out, all the Mega Man games were anywhere from like $40 to $60 at retail, physical copies. And it's a thing where, like you said, inflation, that's worth a lot more money, and poor mom and dad having to buy us all these games and everything like that. It just makes me more grateful to them that we were able to play these.
Well, there's other factors too. We can take a look, and this could go into its own discussion at some point, but you look at game rentals back then, right? So game rentals would affect some sales. You couldn't go out and necessarily buy all 6 Mega Man games, back in the day, right? So, we didn't always own all the Mega Man games. Like, hey, maybe we had 3 and 2 or whatever we might have had in the house. Maybe we had 2 Mega Man games, but we rented the rest of them possibly. So that that was another piece of it. Nintendo was very upset with, they tried to block, game rentals. They were not happy with that because it did hurt sales. And it was a little bit of a gray area in their defense, but it was a way for us also to get to experience more games as well. So it's, I guess, a surprise. I don't know. It's game sales back then were kind of weird. It's not kind of like how, you were talking about this recently, how games have surpassed Hollywood and music industries and everything like that. So, games back then were a little bit different. There was also a stigma to video. There still is. I've dealt with that, with people still like, ooh, video games. There's still a little stigma there. Don't get me wrong. But it's definitely more, it's more of its own pop culture thing now. So, whereas it was like, hey, there were certain people who played video games back in the day, and some people frowned upon it very, very much so back then. So,
oh my gosh,
game sales were weird. So yeah, it's an interesting tidbit though.
I before we wrap things up, you're pop my bubble. Capcom sees the remakes for Live Alive, Dragon Quest III. They see Konami doing Suikoden 1 and 2, and Square Enix investing time and money with Team Asano to produce games like Live Alive, Dragon Quest III, the Octopath Travelers 1 and 2, knowing it's only going to get 1 to 3 million sales, using that kind of structure that isn't a AAA effort. It's a AA effort at most. Breath of the Wild 1 and 2 HD 2D. Come on, what do we think? What do we think? Breath of the Wild 1 and 2 HD 2D remake. Pop my bubble here, Feral.
Breath of the Wild remake?
Oh, I said Breath of the Wild. I said Breath of Fire. I am so sorry.
Oh, Breath of Fire.
Breath of Fire.
I was like, it might be too soon for Breath of the Wild.
No, Nintendo, don't be like Sony and the Horizon remaster. Nintendo, don't remake Breath of the Wild. Capcom, what do we think of a Breath of Fire 1 and 2 HD 2D using their AA team?
You and I think alike on a lot of topics here. So I've thought about this as well, like as the possibility, Breath of Fire collection, even possibly, maybe even 1 through 4. Let's pretend 5 and 6 never happened. Okay, yes, so let's pretend those things never ever happened, especially 6, even though we didn't get 6 here, but and we don't need it, and we will never see it anyways because it's offline. Didn't stay online very well. It was an online game. But I think the possibility of seeing a 1 and 2, possibly a remake, maybe. I think it's more likely, given Capcom and their history, recent history especially, that you'd see more, if anything, just a standard collection with 1 through 4. Maybe 5 might be on. They might throw 5 on there. But I think 1 through 4, I think we would see. And they've explored that in the past with 1 and 2. So we did get Breath of Fire 1 and 2 Advance, Game Boy Advance, anyways. They had to kind of rescale it, anyways, for the system. I would prefer remakes though, rather than a collection, because Breath of Fire 1 and 2 definitely need some quality of life improvements to be viable in this day and age. And does Capcom want to put that kind of money into it? Maybe. I know it's the biggest thing really is just the translations, and fixing the glitch in Breath of Fire 2 to make sure that things are working properly. There's a glitch in the hero system, with the decisions you make and whatnot. There was some type of glitch there with that. But you need to be able to go into a item shop and know what TLDE is, or all these different things. Like you have these acronyms for everything. Like everything's an acronym. Like I don't know what this is. Like okay, well SW is that sword, okay, also maybe a dark sword would be like DRSW. They had space limitations based on how they had used the Japanese language in the game, how they implemented it, and it didn't translate well to other languages. But there were a lot of RPGs that suffered from abbreviation syndrome there, and it made playing it very difficult. Let alone not having the ability like we have now in RPGs. Like you go to equipment shop, oh, this increases your attack and this decreases the attack. Right? You don't have that either. But to not even know what the heck it's called, it also takes a little bit of the immersion out of it too. Oh, cool, Dark Sword, that sounds cool. All right, well, DRSW. Okay, well, that doesn't kind of hit quite as hard.
It kind of reminds me of the Final Fantasy Legend games on the Game Boy. It's kind of that same thing. You're stuck with 4 letters to name a sword, and Excalibur is X-Cal. I'm like, okay, well, that's cool, I guess. Oh no, yeah,
I think the smartest thing from a business standpoint, if they were going to do a Breath of Fire anything, and it hurts me to say that because I every time there's some Capcom event, I'm waiting for Mega Man 12, Mega Man X9, Mega Man Soccer 2, and something new Breath of Fire. And this, when I get myself more realistic for something good, that would be Breath of Fire, not something like Breath of Fire 6. Being realistic, what something good would be a collection of 1 and 2. With just quality of life improvements at least for the English speaking audiences that would definitely need those quality of life in there to make it, because nobody's going to want to play those games the way they were on the Super Nintendo for English speaking audiences.
Yeah, and it's a thing where I'm still instilled with hope because, as I mentioned, the Suikoden and the Team Asano games, and also the most recent Game Awards Sega trailer, where they're planning on developing 5 brand new games for Streets of Rage. Isn't surprising because we got Streets of Rage 4, but you got a 3D version of it, the 3D version of Golden Axe that hopefully isn't garbage like the PS2 one, and a new Shinobi, stuff like that. So it's a thing where if there are proper, not limitations, but proper expectations. That's it. Proper expectations for how well these games, knowing that maybe they're going to be single A or double A games, knowing it's going to be 1 to 2 million sales, budget for 1 to 2 million sales, make that thought process that, okay, you have a game budget that costs $10 million to develop. You make $1 to $2 million sales, you're going to get it, and you're going to get profit. It's going to work, and then some. Just kind of have that mindset to where, okay, you can develop these games. There is real. I feel like I'm kind of getting off the Mega Man track here, but there's real burnout for a lot of these AAA games where. Yeah. People want to have these single player type experiences, especially old dogs like you and I. And I hate calling us old dogs, but we've been playing video games for so many years now. We want these kind of experiences, and Sega knows it. Capcom should know it. You got Square Enix that knows it, and I really feel like there's going to be a market for that.
Yeah, and I think it does tie into the Mega Man discussion though a little bit too, and you know, with Breath of Fire and Capcom. So just I get one more point on Breath of Fire is, and why I believe we will never see another Breath of Fire is that Capcom has an RPG already, right?
Yes.
It's Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter has replaced Breath of Fire. I think they had another game with maybe dragons in it. I think it was like a dinosaur game or something they got coming out or something.
Are they doing Dragon's Dogma? Is that Capcom? Not Dragon's Dogma.
No, there was some other dragon game I think they were doing. Because I saw like a dragon or something. I thought, I was like, oh, it's a Breath of Fire. Or there's some reveal they did. I can't remember what it was called. But I mean, Monster Hunter is their RPG series now, and I feel like that's really replaced. Breath of Fire was their RPG, right? Because Capcom wanted to be a lot like Nintendo, and in terms of like, hey, we want this type of franchise, this type of franchise. Hey, we got our fighting game, we got this type of game, we got this type of game. They want to diversify their portfolio, if you will. They have their RPG, they have their money in Monster Hunter, and it sells well. To put the money back into Breath of Fire, I don't know if it'll ever happen again. But the same token, if they made another Breath of Fire, would it be what we'd want it to be anyways, or would it look completely different with just the Fire tag stuck on it, kind of like the mobile game they made and called it Breath of Fire 6 of all things. Breath of Fire 5, I'm convinced Breath of Fire 5 was another game. Breath of Fire 5 was probably another game, and then they said, okay, this game's not that great. Let's just throw Breath of Fire 5 on it and it'll sell. Because the time in between Breath of Fire 5 and 4 coming out was such a short window, like it just didn't seem right. I think it was just a game called Dragon Quarter, and they're like, okay, let's slap Breath of Fire. Maybe gave some Breath of Fire like elements to it, but tie that back to Mega Man. If they gave us Mega Man 12 Mega Man 11, and I think that's what we wanted. Mega Man fans, and again, there were things, as you call us old dogs, there were things that we'd probably like to see differently on there, but they're never going to please all of us, right? Because we all like different things about the Mega Man games. But for Mega Man 11 to come out was I think nothing short of a video game miracle. For that to happen and the way it did. Maybe Mega Man 11 in terms of in the same light of Mega Man 9 and 10, sure. But to get a Mega Man 11 with a full retail release for all three systems, right? Physical retail release, and then have a special edition for the Switch with an amiibo in it. To say that was a very nice gesture. I mean, of course, they're making money, right? But don't get me wrong, but still a nice gesture by Capcom to put that out there. And was that the question? I guess is going to be: is that the last hurrah for Mega Man? Was it 11, or will we just maybe at least get? I'd like to at least get one more with 12 and tie into X. And you could put a bow on it, wrap it up, and that'd be okay with that. At least we as fans have some closure and know, like, hey, Classic is done. We have what we have. We can enjoy those games, and then maybe they can move on to doing some more with X, and maybe tie that into the Zero series and so on. Maybe at least give the fans some type of closure with it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the way to go. And even if you have a closing game with 12. Capcom could technically have 13 be like, 13 takes place between 11 and 12. True. If 12 sold so well, and if the sales decline, then you know what? 12 is the perfect end. And even if we don't get a 12, at least we were lucky enough, like you said, to get the whole new retail experience with Mega Man 11, where I did pick up the Switch version because I'm an idiot and I have to have all, as you can see. I gotta get the Mega Man, the mainline Mega Man stuff. I'm an idiot. I had to get the amiibo. Not pictured is the amiibo. I have it, but I just didn't grab it for this. But
same here, man.
Oh man. So yeah, that's our sort of a real deep dive here into the classic mainline Mega Man discussion here. I hope that you enjoyed it, and again, huge thank you to Feral and his awesome Mega Man collection for joining us here today. Make sure you check out his channel. Again, that's on YouTube, FeralInferno. You're going to get a lot of great content like this. Also, year in review, Game of the Year stuff, where he goes over in detail, like the year that Mega Man 3 came out, as well as live gameplay stuff. As Feral had mentioned, he's going to be doing live gameplays of Mega Man 7 through 11. So I absolutely recommend checking that out. Feral, thank you so much for joining me today.
Bruno Fox, thank you for having me. And we've been talking about doing something for a while, and this is awesome. I'm really glad. I love talking. I got goosebumps. I don't know if you can see my camera. I've got goosebumps talking about these series that mean so much to me. So the passion level for Mega Man right now is super high. So now I'm going to walk away from this really wanting Mega Man 12. me too. I'm going to, after this, not seen is going to be me capturing footage from Mega Man. So I'm going to be playing through all the classics to be able to set this up. This is going to be a lot of fun for me. And again, a huge thank you to the audience as well for joining us. I hope you all had fun listening to us, and you'll hopefully be able to catch more in this Mega Flare series. We got a lot of good ideas for additional collabs, so if you're like us, where you like these classic games and new games, make sure you check out here at Inferno Fox Gaming, as well as FeralInferno. Thank you so much. This was fantastic. Mega Flare will live on.
Yes, Mega Flare forever.